Hi again then guys, and welcome to another specific car review on Forza Motorsport 7. It's been a little while since we last discussed a vehicle, and the last one was a pretty notable one for me personally, the Lotus Elise GT1 road car from one of the more recent DLC packs. This one is also from a DLC pack, but not as recent, a couple older. Now the car is a Porsche, of course, the 935 race car, and this car, everything about it reads raw. It looks raw. It has raw specs, well over 800 horsepower, it weighs barely over a European tonne, and you'd probably assume that it would be pretty raw to drive as well. It certainly even sounds aggressive and monstrous. But that's the funny thing, because this car is actually very forgiving. The handling is really good, it's highly competitive, and the straight line speed as well is excellent. Now, with 845 horsepower, you'd probably hope that the straight line speed would be good, and it is. Of course, you can adjust the downforce due to the fact that it's a race car. Some road cars you can anyway, but with a race car, you tend to have more of a range of downforce to work with, and that means that you can significantly change the kind of characteristics which a car like this will have, because Porsches anyway can very easily swing between being really excellent and extremely twitchy and, well, professional cars, let's put it that way, something like a Roof Yellowbird for instance. This one on the other hand, I would actually say is one of the most beginner-friendly Porsche race cars in the game. It's shockingly good through corners, and this version that I'm driving isn't even upgraded. I've made a couple of adjustments to the tuning, increased the downforce a little bit, changed the diff up. I believe, if I remember correctly, I'm running no camber on it at all, and for a car with that kind of power going through only the rear wheels, and without much weight to ground it either, especially in low-speed corners, that's impressive. Porsches do have a reputation, especially when their older models are being discussed, of being, as I said, challenging cars, and for good reason. They can be. This one isn't. It's really good, and to be honest, this car is so good that although I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying the entire pack just for this one car, if however you do decide to get the DLC pack which it's in, this is a guaranteed vehicle, even if you don't like all of the others, which is unlikely, but even if that's the case, I don't really see how you could be disappointed by this car. It's so good in every way. The looks, the sound, even the price, which of course is irrelevant because you get it for free with the pack like you would with any car, but even if you did have to buy it, 235,000 credits is great value. This thing can easily dispatch quite a few modern race cars. Of course, it's got far more impressive numbers, both in terms of power and weight, than many other modern race cars due to the restrictions and regulations, but even when you're going up against certain prototype cars, this can give them a great run for their money. It won't necessarily beat everything, obviously, especially when you're talking prototypes, that's obvious, but it can bring the heat, especially to cars which, or to drivers even more so, which aren't expecting it. This is the kind of car which you could look at and think, yeah, that looks cool, but maybe it's more of a historical collector's piece, rather than something which you could use now and still win races with. That's not the case. This car can get the job done, and it can do it real well. Overall, it's a fairly simple review, to be fair, for this one. It's one of my favourite DLC cars of the game so far, which is saying a lot given that I'm actually not a Porsche fan, generally speaking. I respect them, as I often say, but don't love them. This 911, it's not one which I'd ever paid much attention to. I know it's a good race car, a legendary one for Porsche, Moby Dick, as it's often called, the whale, and for good reason. It's a great car. It was a great car in the real world, and it's a great car on the game as well. So if you do decide to get this particular DLC pack, as I said, I think at least this car is great and almost worth the entire pack for. I believe you can get it on its own though, but don't quote me on that, I'm not certain. I think you can download it on its own, but for that kind of value, you might as well go for the whole pack. Overall, great race car, one which I didn't expect to love anywhere near as much as I do, and it's certainly worth a look, because it spans the gap between being a genuinely great collector's piece, a historically significant Porsche from back in the day, and just a historic race car in general, with tons, and I mean tons, of modern day racing potential against even the latest of machines in stuff like GT3 racing, or even Can-Am cars, or, as I said earlier, On occasion, even some prototypes, especially some of the slightly lower prototypes like the LMP2 kind of category. Overall, great car, certainly worth checking out. And of course, I'll see you guys next time. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.